Thanks so much, Kaylee. And thanks everyone on the call for joining us this morning, this afternoon, depending on where you're dialing in from the US. We are super excited to be speaking with you today. My name is Matt Glaudeman. I'll be the MC for today's presentation. And before we get into the content, some of you may be thinking, well, I thought that this session was actually going to have a different customer sharing their story and journey with ServiceNow. And if that's what you're thinking, you're spot on. Unfortunately, due to some scheduling challenges, we had to pivot. So we are super excited to bring in Alex Beachy from the ICF team to share his story with one of his customers, supporting their journey to improve HR productivity and employee experience in the federal government. So with that in mind, we've got a really solid presentation for you. We're going to get into some really interesting stories and journeys from our customers here. But just to give you the sneak preview, we're going to quickly hit introductions. We're going to share a high-level overview of the project. We're going to get into a live demonstration of configuration that was leveraged with this particular customer. And then we're going to talk a little bit about some implementation best practices for attendees here to consider and possibly take back to your teams as you go through your journey to improve HR productivity and employee experience. We'll have some questions, some time for questions at the end. If you have questions throughout, as Kaylee mentioned, don't hesitate to put them in the Q&A feature. We'd love to address those as we can in real time. And one last little tactical item here. We're going to have a couple of polling questions sprinkled throughout this session. So we'd really love to hear from you and hear your feedback. So without any further ado, my name once again is Matt Glaudeman. I'm a solution executive with ServiceNow's employee workflows team, which ultimately means I help customers within the federal space and specifically around the federal civilian market automate workflows and improve processes and experiences and productivity when it relates to things like employee lifecycle workflows, legal workflows, and workplace or facilities-oriented workflows. I've been supporting federal customers in their journey for talent management for about 10 years now, and super excited and appreciative of everyone for joining us today. Shane, over to you.
Great. Thanks, Matt. Thank you all so much for joining us today. My name is Shane Gallagher. I'm a solution consultant at ServiceNow, essentially Matt's technical counterpart, so specializing in those employee workflow products, helping to unify the employee experience at the enterprise level. Been with ServiceNow for a little over 2 years, so working closely with our federal civilian customer base to help develop some of those low-code, no-code tools. Prior to ServiceNow, had a lot of specialty working in those low-code, no-code platforms and helping to deliver customized solutions on those. So very much looking forward to today's presentation, and I will turn it over to one of our presenters, Alex.
Thank you, Shane. Hi, everybody. It's great to meet you. I am Alex Beachy. I was in the federal space for about 15 years, the last 4 of which I ran a global IT service operation. And in that journey, towards the end, I had inherited a homegrown SharePoint solution, which drove me nuts. I investigated into ServiceNow, but as I was leaving the federal workforce, landed a job at ServiceNow where I was there for about 4 years. And last year, I was offered the opportunity to lead the ServiceNow practice at ICF. So we are a consulting and implementation partner. So we help provide these solutions to our clients. And I oversee the business operations from how we go to market, how we grow our talent, and how we deliver exceptional outcomes for our teammates. And also, I get to be a ServiceNow customer, which I'm super excited about. So I'm also the platform owner, supporting a lot of our lines of business and kind of improving the way that we manage and run our business on the back end. And I've got a teammate with me today, Ben Sheehy, who is our solutions architect, who's going to be helping kind of me out. We did have to pivot, and I told Matt, he didn't pay me, so he gets what he paid for. So if anything goes wrong, I'll just blame Matt. But no, we should be good. I'm super excited to be here, and I appreciate everybody's time today.
Awesome. Alex, Shane, Ben, thanks so much for supporting, and special thanks to the ICF team for your work around the clock to pull this together in such short order. So without any further ado, let's get into it. Alex, we'd love if you could maybe share the high-level overview of just some of the background on the customer and some of the objectives that they had at the onset of the project.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So this is a large-scale Fed financial customer, and really their main objective was to be able to provide centralized services, decrease the cost of technology, of tech debt across the entire kind of federated ecosystem. And they wanted to be able to provide those services down to sub-agencies through what they called a services-based model. So it was really important for them to be able to scale, and they couldn't do that with the technology that they had. They wanted to transition from sort of that more custom development side to something that was an integrated platform, allowing them to kind of unify their data model, unify services, unify the customer experience or the employee experience and the agent experience to make everything more streamlined, gain efficiencies, and that's how they were going to be able to scale. And then ultimately, there's a financial component to it. They wanted to be able to deliver things faster with a lower investment cost. And really, that was around having a single unified platform that had out-of-the-box capabilities that they could leverage quickly and kind of accelerate those adoptions across the rest of the sub-agencies.
So those are all great to hear, Alex, and I'm sure there's many folks online that hopefully can relate to at least one of those pretty ambitious objectives you got there. So I have to ask, when you all got in there, what was the as is, right? What was the original state that you were working with to help get to deliver those customer objectives?
Yeah, so they were responsible for the entire IT strategy for the agency and those sub-agencies and how they manage the investment, where they look to the key technology initiatives. But they kind of started with themselves, which was around 25,000 people, but they had to look to the larger ecosystem. So they were looking at this 160,000 plus, kind of employee base, and there's a little bit of it's a mountain that they're looking at. So they really needed to trust in something in technology that was going to be able to support them to scale in that way. But they were still very much in isolated solution sets. They were on-prem as well as in the cloud. They did have some SaaS. They were a ServiceNow customer, sort of in their early adoption of it. And so they just had a very, what is very common, I think, for most people, they just had this huge technology sprawl. And it made it hard for, agents to support easily, many different, you think about scaling from 25,000 to 160,000 and doing it in a centralized services model. That's hard with having to go from different sub-agency technologies that aren't working together. The data's not in one spot. And just the amount of cost to manage and to pay for licenses for all those different things just was really not conducive to a long-term strategy. So it really was that typical isolated systems, overexpansion, multiple systems doing kind of the same thing, but just differently. And so they really wanted to get to some place where they had a fresh common base, made it easier for everybody to kind of get the actions and get the things that they needed and consolidate a lot of their technical debt.
Alex, forgive me, but I'm gonna go just a little bit off script here.
Yeah.
That people were dealing with a lot of different systems and that digital sprawl across the employee lifecycle. What was that experience like sort of before you started work for those employees? What were some of the challenges that the employees were experiencing? And then maybe on the other side of the coin, the HR business partners, any challenges that they may have been having as well?
Well, I think a lot of it is around, from the employee experience, it was really around, not being able to easily get something resolved. Depending on what sub-agency you're with, maybe you're interacting with a different system than you would if you move to another agency. It also, sort of that black box approach. So I ask for something and it just goes into the ether and eventually it gets resolved. But there's a lot of hand holding, making sure it gets passed around to the people it needs to. So there was no clear visibility, no way to really just make sure that things were being done in a timely manner. And conversely, that's the same thing for the HR business partners, right? Because they're having to deal with the same thing, but from the agent side of it. So interacting with multiple different systems, it's a lot of copy and paste, handoffs between systems, data pools, manual entry. So you're getting inconsistent data, you're getting unreliable. So then it trickles up through the organization. Now HR managers and CHROs can't trust the data to make informed decisions about the direction they go, the services they're providing, the quality of the life for the employees. So it all just kind of starts to just snowball as a part of that.
Love it, Alex. Thanks for sharing. I think some of those challenges that you mentioned are probably are present at numerous different organizations here on the line. So with that in mind, want to think about just a high level of the solution that you guys were able to identify and maybe what it looked like. Like what was the solution? What were some of those critical use cases? And we'll start there. How's that?
Yeah, that works. So there was really the initial kind of focus was around the employee relations and case management. So they had very kind of focused set of criteria they wanted to accomplish as quickly as possible. So from an employee relations standpoint, I have highlighted in there, there's an emphasis on allegations, but we're also doing family and medical leave. We're doing unemployment, grievances of many different types, information requests, third-party appeals. So there was a kind of a laundry list of different types of cases that they wanted to make sure that they could provide to the employees as quickly as possible. And they kind of use that based off of what are the commonalities that they see across the employee base. And so they started with that kind of core set to make sure that they were moving in the right direction. We also implemented the skill intelligence and hiring course feature. So it was a lot of making sure that information's getting routed to the right places, and that as a part of the hiring process, we're interacting with the cases in the right way and those types of things. The biggest pole in the tent, though, a lot of that's pretty, we're talking about an out-of-the-box capability. And actually, I'm going to skip down real fast, and I'm going to go back to the third bullet. So the Employee Center Pro and Manager Hub, really that was around creating a great user experience upfront, easy for both the employee to get the information, the service requests that they needed, but also for the managers to be able to, make sure they were taking care of their employees, making sure that the agents were able to assist in the right ways. And that was all centered around a UI, UX. Because really the out of the box comes with a lot of great functionality and features. This was just kind of making it very clean for that employee set and kind of the things that they cared about. The longest pole in the tent, going back to that third bullet, was actually the integrations, which is not uncommon. Most of these things are very out of the box. It's configuring just to make sure approvals happen and things are routed in the right way. The HR Connect and USA Staffing were the long poles in the tent. Those took the longest. It was about a 3-month project. So honestly, all of this wasn't that long. That was the part that really kind of took the most out of it. And it was a lot of not on the ServiceNow end. It was working with USA Staffing, HR Connect to get those integrations kind of cleaned up and tied in together. Because it's not, that you talk with most federal agencies, that is one of the hardest systems to integrate with. So that was a kind of a big lift and a big win for the team and for the customer.
Alex, we got a question to that point on integration from Jason in the audience. He asked, can you talk more about how you integrated HR Connect and USA Staffing data, and what data were you able to pull and use?
Yeah, so we did a push and a pull. So we pushed recruiting information to establish that recruiting. What are we calling it? Sorry, I'm just drawing a blank there. But the posting on USA Staffing, and no, this is a direct through API integration. I see RPA in there. We could talk offline about that, but no, in this case, we were able to use just the API integrations there. And then it was a pullback as the state changed through the USA Staffing posting. As things happened, that information came back into the recruiting case in ServiceNow to update things, trigger additional workflows and tasks. So what's really cool about that is you talk about kind of a very static system. And there's a lot of those out there that are just like offer, and federal agencies do it, private sector customers do it, where they have these systems that are kind of big and beefy, but They're not a system of action. It's more of a system of information. It's the source of truth for a lot of that data, but you can't do anything with it. And so think of just being able to, all right, as this stage happens, what are the things that we need to take care of that we can't track in USA staffing? We can't create those activities. You can do that in the back end just by having the trigger be that API feed back into ServiceNow to go, okay, now here's the next set of steps that we need to do to move the needle. That kind of answer the question? Close.
I think I heard it. I heard a solid answer there. And I'm excited. I think people are going to see a little bit of it when we get into the demo part.
Okay.
But we got another question from John Bates, and Shane, maybe I could tee this one up for you. So on the defense side, many department level applications and data sources will not allow API connections from systems that are not systems of record.
Mm-hmm.
How does ServiceNow address this in other cases? So to put it another way, Shane, and Alex, if in lieu of an API, are there other ways we can get data from those third-party systems of record?
Yeah, there's a lot of ways. You know, in our own instance, there's times where we do. I create chaos for my own developers, and we do manual pulls in some cases, and we have catalog items that trigger the import, the whole import process, and we kind of have a clean system for that. So worst case scenario, that's like, you know, that's the fallback plan. RPA is a really clean solution for that. There are treasury-owned systems that external agencies can't interact with, and clients have used RPA as a means to scrape data, data scrape from those systems of record to manage the things and to automate the things on their own ServiceNow end. So RPA is a great one when you can't do a straight line integration there. Those to me are the two most common ones, is like you're either doing a manual export and import, or you're creating RPA as a part of that.
Yeah, and to Alex's point, what he's speaking to are all capabilities within ServiceNow. So RPA being robotic process automation, that's where essentially you have a bot that's going to do all that tedious manual entry for you when it doesn't have an API to make that connection. Or to Alex's point, right, setting up those procedures to make sure that you're importing those files in whatever format, right, that you need to from that external system. ServiceNow, we have a lot of capabilities and ways to ensure that we're meeting you essentially halfway at the very least for even systems that don't have an API.
There's a few others too. I won't go in the rabbit hole, but yeah, there's a lot of ways to kind of get the data where you need it to go.
I think that's maybe the topic for the next call.
next tech talk.
Exactly.
But hey, great questions. We really appreciate the collaboration there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and ultimately, right, when we're talking about all these solutions, right, I'm seeing a lot of out-of-the-box capabilities, Employee Center Pro, Manager Hub, employee relations, all those case management capabilities, while also making sure you're meeting those requirements. So Alex, as someone who, in a past life was an implementer of these types of solutions, how did you get there, right? How did you work with your customer, with your client, to make sure that you understood what they needed and made sure that the outcome of what they got was going to meet the vision and meet those customer objectives they had?
I think that's the key to it all. A lot of times, not a lot of times, but people will often kind of focus on the technology first. And we try to steer them to a different approach, which is really focusing on the outcomes that we're looking for. And that starts with building the ConOps, the concept of operations. How are we harmonizing what the department delivers to its customers, the mission values, and making sure that the architecture of a holistic solution fits the operating model of what that agency does. So you have to start with the big picture first, and then you drill down into the details. And then with this customer in particular, because they were focused on the shared services model, that was kind of the next step down. As we got more into the operational, from strategic down into operational, we talked about, all right, what is a shared services model really look like? Operationally, how do they do that so that the technology best supports them? If we just went and go, all right, we're going to start building services and putting it on the employee center, have we really solved the problem? So it really is kind of that wide to narrow focus. And then, constant collaboration, and I'll talk about this as a part of best practices towards the end, but, shaping that environment through a very common and collaborative experience for a lot of different stakeholders. The there's an organizational change management component to all of this that people need to be aware of, and it's easier to include people. It's also like there's a balance to that too. At some point, you just got to kind of, you got to say, yes, we're doing this. This is the direction. You need that decision maker, but you need to have collaboration. You need to have people who at least feel their voice was heard and those types of things. So we did a lot of collaboration and communication, but without risking speed. There is an element, you kind of have to balance those two. And then lastly, focusing on outcomes, not outputs. The hardest thing for a very tech smart client is not telling a partner how to do it. And instead they should be focusing on, this is what the outcome needs to be. I think too often people will try to customize, we talk about customization of an out of the box solution because they go, well, this is how we've always done it. This is, and it's like, yes, because you didn't have the technology to support you. So instead, let's focus on the outcome you want. And let's let the technology, we'll design the technology in a way using those out of the box features to get you where you want to be. And it's going to be a lot faster, easier, and better for you. And so I think those are kind of the 4 commonalities, or that's kind of how we approach this individual project. But this is pretty common across all of our programs.
Awesome. Well said, Alex. So, hey, before we get into the demonstration, we'd love to do a quick poll of the audience here. And I see that we've got about 80 people joining us today. I'd love to see participation in this poll hit 50%. So thanks in advance for your input. The question is, how many different HR systems support your workforce today? 1 to 4, 5 to 8, 9 to 12, or 13 or more. While we're waiting on responses to come in, I'll share a little anecdote from a ServiceNow perspective. As a ServiceNow employee, we use ServiceNow for ourselves, for everything. And we have a ton of HR systems of record, IT systems of record, facility systems of record in the back end that the IT department manages somewhere. But from an employee perspective, from that experience, I essentially just interact with the ServiceNow portal. And whatever my request is, it's going to be routed to the right system of record, where I never even really need to engage with that system. So if I had to answer, I would answer with a question mark. I'm not sure how many systems there are out there because it's a sort of one-stop shop experience from a software perspective. The concept of multiple systems across that employee lifecycle, and then leveraging a platform to kind of sit on top to provide people with a more consolidated one-stop shop experience is exactly what Alex is going to be sharing here from a demonstration perspective. So with that in mind, I'm going to cue it up for you, Alex, if you don't mind, just to share the high level of the story that Alex is going to be taking us on today for the next, who knows, maybe 20, 25 minutes, depending on how many questions come in. We're going to start with that employee experience, and it's going to be an employee looking to service from the enterprise. They're going to drill through some self-service features, and eventually that employee is going to take action. In this particular case, that action is going to be a manager trying to initiate a recruitment process to fill a new position. From there, the manager is going to get some visibility into the onboarding workflow, and then we're going to look at an HR business partner, or HR specialist's view of actually processing some of those onboarding activities throughout that employee journey. We're going to tie it all together with a more senior level HR view of reporting and dashboards that gives stakeholders visibility into all of the transactions across the employee lifecycle, across their workforce in a real-time dashboard. So with that in mind, Alex, I will turn it over to you for the screen share, sir.
Awesome. I need you to kill the share before I can.
You got it.
Giving me the warning here. All right. Let me pull it up. And so I will do just a quick disclaimer. We talked about one of our federal agency customers, and this is a replica. This is not the real instance. I may have been able to do it if Matt, gave me just a little bit more lead time. But interestingly enough, we actually used this as a proof of concept for them originally in the mock-up of a lot of different of the features. In fact, they actually, this was right when I was kind of first joining ICF, they actually asked us to use this to demonstrate to one of those sub agencies that they were trying to have become a part of their shared services. They're like, hey, we like this. Can you show them what you have in the demo instance? And so we still kind of use this as a proof of concept and kind of show what the team has really built. The USA staffing integration is not a part of this demo instance, unfortunately. That we didn't port all of that over, but it will hopefully give you some good intel. And so what you're looking at here, we talk about the unified employee experience. And so I got to hide everybody here for a second because I can't click on everything I need to. So I'm logged in as myself. This could be any employee, and you're going to get a similar but a unique experience for you. It really depends. A lot of this is role-based access control and user-defined criteria that determine what information is shared with you and how is it shared. But there's some commonalities that you're typically going to get. Across the top here, you can see I've got my profile. Well, I can impersonate because I'm a system administrator on this system, but you'd be able to check in and kind of change some of your core information, update things as you need to. Interestingly enough, you can have that integrate with something like Active Directory or whatever your LDAP is and feed that information back down. So really cool to just be able to kind of update in one spot, and it can spread to the rest of the IT ecosystem. For an employee, I get to see what my action plans are. Have I set goals? What are those milestones I'm trying to achieve? I can go to if I'm a manager, which in this case I'm set up as one, I can go ahead and take a look at my team, at how they're growing and the direction they're going, all those types of things. Journeys is a part we'll talk about in a little bit more detail, but you can set up journeys for pretty much any employee lifecycle event. And career growth and opportunities for myself, for my team. Where am I looking to go for the future? So very personalized to me, single point here. I've got my favorites, which is really just around things within service catalog items, knowledge-based articles, things that I commonly need to refer to. Maybe, I know that my team always asks about the holiday schedule, or I have actually direct reports who live down in Puerto Rico. So I got to tag, what is their holiday schedule? Because I can never keep it straight, so we get to add those favorites. From a my request perspective, this is where you get to keep tabs on the things that you've requested over time. So no more black box about, hey, I submitted a request, I emailed somebody. No, it's all managed through here. I'm sending a request in and I can click on it and I can see where it is in the process. And depending on how the configuration is set up, you can give them a lot of detail and make sure that the employee feels like they know where their request is throughout the entire process. A big component to kind of digital transformation is giving transparency to where things are in the process. It's going to make the HR agents better. It's going to give comfort for the HR managers and the CHROs who have to make sure that things are moving in the right direction. Comically enough, you'll see how bad my make-believe HR team is doing right now when you see some of the data on the back end. But and then my tasks. Do I have things that I need to take action on so that I'm taking care of things that people expect me to, hold accountable? Is somebody requesting leave? To Matt's point, when I was at ServiceNow, something like my expense report, even though it was a different system, that data was shared into ServiceNow. So my manager would just go in and on his mobile device on ServiceNow, on the mobile app, would click, hey, my tasks, I look through Alex's expense report, I can approve or deny, as he sees fit. So all really useful stuff right there. Then as we trickle down, so that's kind of very personalized to me. The other personalizations, and we can see task and requester down here as well. The carousel here can also be configured to show different information for different people as well. And so this is around announcements. This is getting out common information. Maybe we have a new CHRO and we want to promote that person and we want to highlight the direction we're going. Maybe there's a big event coming on. So it's a whole bunch of different things that you can make sure are promoted, are announced around the employee experience. Down here on the left-hand side, we start to get into those service-oriented designs. So in this case, we have a few different types of services. We have our HR services broken down into what we call different categories. So we have pay and time, we've got our benefits, our career development, talent acquisitions, which we'll dive a little bit deeper into, and then a series of important links and things that can get us to where we think we might need to go just to get some more information. We also have, again, to that single landscape, this isn't just an HR service, HR system. This is a platform for digital action. So we have the ability to order different IT services and request things. We have, if you have a citizen development initiative, we can apply for citizen development and do that thing. Funny enough, I actually did that when I was at ServiceNow. So it's a really great use case. We have news centers and no news to display here. And then we also have, from a manager experience, we can start to see different things around the things that we need to have at our fingertips as managers. So I'm going to go back to the homepage here real fast. And so scrolling down after the carousel loads, an important thing, sometimes people don't know where they need to go. Maybe it doesn't make a ton of sense. Maybe they're not looking for, or they're not seeing what they need to look for, although there's the browse all option down here. We can type in here and we can say medical benefits, and we can start to see different catalog items and knowledge base articles that help us get information in a single stop. So I don't necessarily have to know exactly what I'm looking for, but if I type in generalities, I can come across, oh, I wanted to submit an inquiry and how I enroll for medical benefits and those types of things. So lots of great search features in here, and this can be extended in a lot of different ways across the platform. We do project management on the platform as well, so people can actually search and see where status is on projects and things like that. So totally interesting and useful ways. Different popular topics that come across, these get added and updated as kind of things get activated across the employees. So this is an ever-changing sort of widget, and you basically kind of get to see where people's activities are focused. We have cool introductory videos here embedded right in. So it gives people the opportunity, if there's, an announcement from this, from the CEO or, the senior leadership, they get to post those videos. Maybe it's an all hands announcement, those types of things. We have our different application setup. So this is not the only system. We have recommended apps down here. We also have some of the recent ones that I've highlighted. So Fidelity, so I know where my investments are. I like to learn, so I want to make sure I'm keeping tabs on my LinkedIn Learning, Outlook, and then my pay side of things from ADP. So all useful stuff, single interface. Lastly, I'm going to go over here to upcoming events. So the ability to highlight, have people register, add them to their calendar so that they're a part of the journey. If you have even something as simple as a holiday coming up, people can add it to their calendar and know about it right then and there. So Matt, do we have any questions on the chat or anything I need to talk about here?
No questions at the moment, Alex. So maybe we could shift over to that recruitment action. What do you think?
Yeah. So I'm a manager. I have a vacancy that just popped up or is coming down the pike, and I know that I'm going to need to recruit somebody new, hire somebody. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at what recruitment things. Now, in the solution that we provided to our client, they actually asked for two different things, which was requesting a position description and then initiating classification. And classification is sort of that recruitment action. For me and how I would design it, this is just, everybody's personal preference. I would incorporate the two. And actually even ServiceNow, and we've developed our own kind of enhancements to it, but there's ways to kind of have this be a part of a job profile so that people don't have to ask for like position descriptions. It's already part of the data model. So there's lots of ways, and it's kind of that crawl, walk, run approach. So we're going to go ahead and initiate a classification. We're going to request a hiring action. So you might see a lot of this may become very familiar. I'm not going to dig into all the data elements of it, but I am going to make sure that we establish that all the required information. So position title, I'm going to say I need a new hiring manager, or maybe the old one is leaving. This is going to be open for, I'm going to open it up for myself. However, you can have it opened up for whoever. And we're going to bypass some of this HR specialist phone number. We're going to just put in a very vanilla one here. And we're going to say the HR specialist is Abe. The requesting office is appeals, and we are opened for ACE as well. And I think that takes care of, oh, travel required. So the nice thing is here, this also tells me when we have a big form like this, and sometimes the forms do get complex, and that's a design choice more than anything else. We get to see real fast, oh, I'm missing a required piece of information. Obviously also highlighted here with the red asterisk, but makes it easy to kind of identify, cool, I've fulfilled all the needs. But this is actually a lot of the data that people are looking for when there are recruiting managers are looking for when they're trying to find the right person. So this is just the ability there. We actually have the same capability that we're releasing internally to help with our ServiceNow recruiting and those types of things, because I was frankly tired of manual kind of swivel chair and not having good visibility into it. So we're going to go ahead and submit that request.
So, Alex, as
Yeah.
that's the question, you're touching on those right points, right? What do those folks getting these requests need? What's the information for that? I'm also seeing federal specific data on here.
Yeah.
How did you kind of get that in there? What was the approach there of getting, because that's tends to be a lot when it comes to HR, recruitment, OPM related data. How'd you get all that in there? How'd you do it?
Yeah, so great question. What's really cool about ServiceNow is they're always evolving. And one of the capabilities that they've come out with from the employee workflow side of the house is a federal set of tables. So anybody that's sort of familiar with ServiceNow and the HR of companies, of private companies, and the HR federal space, federal just has a ton more data. It's a lot more complex. OPM adds layers of complexity. So what ServiceNow did is added a plugin basically to extend core HR to add that functionality, add those data elements. So what that means is you're not creating custom tables. You're not eating into your custom table count. You're able to align with OPM standards. So the other thing so then when you're talking about integrations into USA Staffing and other types of HR programs of record, you're feeding all of that right information into the right spots. You're not manually creating it or custom creating it. So that's what we really try to leverage in these use cases, because it's already in existence. It doesn't incur any additional costs. It's just a real clean, nice way to do it. The other thing that I like about it too, and this is because ServiceNow, when we talk about out of the box, the functionality, a lot of the features, what allow us to accelerate delivery are the fact that we're just fine tuning something that's already created. I equate it to we're building a digital house. The architecture is already there. The design of the house is there. What we're going in and doing is, somebody wants to change the color of the walls. Somebody wants different doorknob handles. It's those types of things. Sometimes they get more complex, but a lot of times with these HR implementations, sticking with out of the box is relatively easy and straightforward. And with the federal table data model too, what's nice is that you can also see the gaps in your data. When you start to use something that's out of the box, that's designed for OPM standards, and all of a sudden you see, hey, there's just consistently this one data element that we're missing. Now you can look at your data architecture and go, okay, this is where we should be capturing it, and we're not. So let's tweak that thing. Let's make sure that system of record is supporting our larger business needs. That kind of help answer the question?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's great to hear too. So it sounds like you're able to pair a lot of that up to this recruitment workflow that we're seeing here.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not going to go too in depth on this page. So what I've just done is I've submitted the recruitment request. And basically this is kicking off a lifecycle event in the back end. And as I mentioned earlier, a lifecycle event can be literally built for anything that an employee might experience. It could be taking a leave of absence. It could be, from a military standpoint, I could be getting ready for a deployment. it really can be just about, somebody going on TAD. You could set those up for almost anything. And so what this is doing is kicking off a series of activities that make sense and make sure that all the actions are happening that need to in order for that life cycle event to close. So in this case, making sure that we go through the recruitment process. So not going to go too much into detail on this side because I'm going to show sort of now what it looks like of handling. So this comes over as a case. So an HR agent, a hiring manager, whoever you want may have activities associated with this. And this is just a common view. And this is from the requester viewpoint to see, hey, what needs to happen? What's left to happen? And so in this case, we've done a lot of things have already happened. There's just a few cleanup items. Any questions on that?
Alex, not a question, but just a little extra color commentary. If you were looking at that previous screen there, you can see you've got some activities like classification, maybe even recruitment, depending on how that's defined, that may happen before something goes to USA staffing or whatever the federal applicant tracking system you're using. On the tail end of that, you've got activities, let's say new hire onboarding or getting ready for day one that also may be outside of the scope of what you'd find in something like USA staffing.
Right.
So when we talk about that end-to-end life cycle for hiring, what you've done is you've put a little bit of workflow on the front end, a little bit of workflow on the back end. You're still using that best of breed federal applicant tracking system. But by pulling that data from USA staffing, like you mentioned a little bit before, you can really get a holistic view of that end-to-end process and timeline from the time that it's initiated to the time that you get somebody in the door.
Yep. And what's really cool about it too is so something like onboarding a new hire, it's not a simple single checkbox, never is. If anybody's been in military service, you get handed a checklist and you walk around and people sign it and you don't know what they're doing. Well, imagine just translating that into an employee lifecycle event. So you can have sub events, you can have things kick off other workflows. So now that onboarding new hire, there's a single kind of check item, but there's a bunch of lists under it that go, all right, we need to have, these activities. Some of them take place sequentially, some take place in parallel. So the entire process starts to get automated. And then you think about, well, what does that really mean? It means faster time to onboarding. It means that, let's say you really want to make sure somebody understands, gets a briefing from the CEO or, from a senior leader in the organization. Well, that can just be videotaped and they can put it in there. And then you can have more personalized experiences once they're on board, but the key messages can already be delivered ahead of time. So it just speeds up the process. And the idea is getting people faster to being work ready as quickly as possible once once their boots are on the deck with the company or the organization. How am I doing on time? I want to be cognizant of all this.
We've got 13 minutes left, so let's rock and roll.
Okay, cool. I will speed things up a little bit. So we're going to get to what we call now the agent workspace. So a workspace, there's a bunch of them. You can create your own. There's a lot of different ways to do it. This is an HR agent workspace. And what this allows is, as now I'm pretending to be an HR agent, I can sort of navigate. If anybody's worked with ServiceNow or other platforms, the list views and everything can get a little bit cumbersome. So ServiceNow designed these configurable workspaces so that all the work I need to do is kind of one click away. So I walk in, I click on the workspace, and this is kind of my homepage where I can start to see. And I joked earlier about the state of my HR business right now. I've got 36, cases at risk for SLA breach. I've got 14 high priority. I've got, of those 36, I've got 37 open. So the team needs to kind of clean up some work here, but it's a way to start to see things. And this is totally configurable. You can change it up. We use several different ones in our own business. And so it's just a really clean way to kind of get to the things, the high level things that you need to. Now, I'm going to pretend like, all right, I'm an HR agent. I see where things are, and I have a case that I need to work on. So I'm opening up this onboarding case for Susan Taylor, and you can see that this is assigned to me, and the Workspace now gives me a ton of information. It can have HR tasks associated with it, maybe emergency contacts for Susan Taylor, additional cases that are opened, interactions, which are like telephone calls. You can log all of those different types of phone calls, emails, text messages, meetings, task SLAs, a bunch of other things. It gives you kind of that centralized overview of managing this effort for Susan on behalf of Susan. So it really allows you to kind of stay in one spot and be able to help the employee out as quickly as possible. So a lot of data here just to kind of help me manage it. You can also see that I've got an ability to chat and communicate. Additionally, I want you to note up here, there's the little ST in a circle. So Susan Taylor is actually on here looking at the same case right now. So she's getting onboarded and she is curious about, what is the state, so she's from her version of the Employee Center able to access and look into her own case that's opened up for her, which again, creating that sense of transparency, that sense of community and belonging, which is really great to have. From the case though, there is an important aspect here. So there's comments and then there's work notes. So let's say that I have additional, collaborators. Maybe Abe is on here because we identified him as one of our agents earlier. I can create work notes that then stay private to the agents that are supporting that. So you can see here, closed notes updated, we're assigning new buddy. All of these things are running in the background. So Susan can't see those, and including Gail. Gail's not going to be able to see those because those are kind of external. We're keeping this to the HR business partners so that they can collaborate and communicate without creating a lot of noise on the front end for the, quote unquote end customer. But then the comments themselves can be something that's across the board. It allows us to engage through a single common framework with the requester, with Susan. So you can see here, Gail had messaged me earlier, saying, asking if she needed anything. Oh, and it looks like there we go. Susan just commented in, hey, Alex, I did have a quick question. Would you be able to help me understand the vision benefits and how to enroll in them? So interestingly enough, aside from all this great information I have on the employee on the right-hand side here, I can go down a level to Agent Assist. So this is a great place for me to find information that I need to best close the resolution of this case. So Susan asked about vision benefits. So I'm just going to type in vision here, and I'm going to see a whole bunch of different stuff. And I'll see vision benefits enrollment, the enrollment form, enrollment instructions, which is a knowledge-based article. Oh, vision benefits, details, and policy. So I'm going to go ahead and attach this. I'm going to say, hey, Susan, here is some great info for you. And I'm going to attach the article. So boom, right then and there, I don't have to create an email. I don't have to go try and find something on a share drive. It's all at the touch of my fingertips, allows me to send the resolution over to her, and boom, look, she's responded back. She's happy with it. I've solved a problem. Makes me much more efficient and makes Susan feel like she's a part of something. Any questions around all of that? Just trying to speed up things here. Anything you want me to highlight, Matt?
Yeah, you're spot on, Alex. Let's rock and roll.
Okay, cool. Last little bit. It is always important. We talk about data-driven decisions. We talk about the ability to understand what's going on in our business. So there is also, I can go down here. I'm not going to click on it because it's just going to take me back and forth. But there's the Analytics Center. So I've previously clicked on that. There's a series of dashboards that I can choose from, a whole bunch of different ones. I have the Manager dashboard opened here, which shows us analytics. So this actually gives me data over time, which is really predictive analytics, which is really cool to see. Okay, what are we going to look like? What's our trending going to be in the future based off of the previous state? So again, I can drill down into all this data. It's not like it's just a static, screenshot. I'm not going to go into it just because it'll take me away from everything. But I can see case assignments by group. Where are we focusing our attention, and by categories here, so we can see across the whole Where are we spending most of our time? Maybe we need to beef up something there. Maybe we need to understand why are there so many benefits cases being open. Maybe it's that enrollment time of the year, and so we expect that. It allows us to better plan our work and also make sure that we're resolving the right things in the right way. And this was what was important for me, even on the IT side, is like being able to see where can I create efficiencies in that? And so that's what this data is really around helping make decisions on, and also hold our teams accountable to be able to see all that stuff. And then we can see, cases open today, 2,500. We've got our work cut out for us here, and some of the highlighted ones, some of the most recent ones that we have going on. But there's a bunch of different dashboards that come out of the box. Predictive analytics is phenomenally helpful in just seeing things over the course of time. And it helps you understand what your ROI has been. Where are we investing? Because that's always an important aspect of all of our customers. I've spent money on this. How is it making me better? And you can start to see those changes in time. Any questions? Sorry, I tried to speed it up there.
Alex, no worries. We'll save the questions for the end. I know you have a couple of implementation best practices to share. So if you could stop sharing screen, I'll go ahead and share my slide, and then we'll try to leave 2 minutes at the end here for any outstanding questions.
You let an aviator talk, and we're just going to get long-winded, man, I tell you. All right. So this is, through my years of experience, observations, this is something that we try to hold dear at ICF as well. But this is just generally across the board. What are some best practices? And some things that I just recommend to everybody. There's a three-legged stool. I used to have a client that said, Alex, I promise to underreact if you promise to over-communicate. I still take that to heart every day. I think it's really, really important to have communication. Don't bring me bad news late, bring me bad news early. Let us make decisions in a timely manner. Let's talk about things that may not be a big issue. Okay, that's fine, but let's bring all the risks, all the issues to the table. And when I talk about the three-legged stool, it's around ServiceNow, the partner, and the customer, all three together at the table at the same time. When somebody's excluded, when there's a two-directional conversation and the third one's left out, it breaks down the team mentality. I will tell you, nobody cares more about the client success than ServiceNow and the partner. We want that implementation to be successful. It's a team effort. So bring everybody together, be that glue that makes sure that we're cohesive, we understand the plan, we're executing to it, we're supporting each other, because everybody wants you to win. A roadmap to transparency. You would be surprised how many clients don't own their own roadmap. Our kind of key element and kind of push is for it's a three-legged effort, but it really needs to be owned by the client. It's their baby. We're helping them along that journey, but having a roadmap so that you can see, I prefer 3-year roadmaps, even though the 2 and 3 year out might be a bit fuzzy. Put it in there. If you have ideas, make sure it's in there. And so that you can see, where are we? Why are we delayed? Why are we ahead? I want this new thing. What has to, the puts and takes and all of that. So having a roadmap, a product roadmap, really helps with that. UI, UX, and organizational change management right from the get-go. Waiting till the end to do those things is only going to hurt it in the long run. Everybody wants a great employee experience, a user experience. Design it from the get-go. Have your OCM plan in place from the get-go, and that way your adoption is going to go way easier, and that's always something that we're really looking for. Prepare for the shift from custom app to out of the box. So, there's going to be times where people are going to develop something that maybe ServiceNow hasn't yet, or maybe they develop something that they haven't bought licenses for yet. Be prepared for that shift. Be prepared, set yourself up. And that's where architecture really plays a key role. Planning for the future, having that roadmap will help drive these things, but just be prepared for it. And in the case of our client that we talked about today, ServiceNow is coming out with talent acquisition. So luckily, the things that we've designed blend very nicely together with that future capability. And we're planning for it now, even though it's not, it's not out and available yet. We're kind of making sure that we're prepping for that for the future. And then leverage OPM federal data model. Data is key. Data is king. Use the things that are there to help make it better and easier for you as a federal customer.
Love it, Alex. Thanks for sharing those. So, hey, we're out of time for the Q&A, unfortunately, but I thought we had some great engagement throughout the session. Just as next steps on this slide, we'll share this out after the session, but you've got my information, you've got Alex's information, and everyone on this call within a federal organization has an employee workflows ServiceNow specialist dedicated to you guys. So feel free to reach out to your ServiceNow technical experts or myself. Shameless plug, this summer and fall, we're going to be hosting a series of events in person throughout the United States focused on talent development and employee experience. We're also going to be lining up another series of tech talks and workshops in the DMV area this fall, all focused on similar content, hoping to get folks like yourselves and your peers excited for and proficient in a lot of the capabilities that we reviewed today. So with that in mind, a sincere thank you to everyone for joining. We really appreciate your time today and hope you have a great afternoon. Alex, Ben, thanks for jumping in on such short notice to share a great presentation with us. We really appreciate your support here. Thanks to the Carasoft team, and we hope to see you all soon. Take care, everyone.